Just give me 1 second. All right, students. So we're going to revise this chapter, that is tissues. Now, all in all, we can say that tissues, it is a group of cells. Just 1 second. Yes. So the tissues, they are particularly a group of cells wherein we can say that if we talk about a normal cell, so a normal cell doesn't have like it exists independently, but it cannot perform multiple work as it is supposed to. So these cells, they form a group and that makes a tissue. Now the tissues, they have a property called as division of labor. Labor means work. So it's like they divide the works among themselves so as to perform any kind of bodily function better. Now, when the tissues, they form a group, they form the organ. And when the organs form a group, it becomes a organ system. So that is how a group of cells starts. And then at last, we have the organ system. Now, I asked the question that what is the major difference in between the plant tissues and animal tissues? It's that mostly the animals, they are mobile, meaning they can move from one place to another. Okay. Whereas the plant, they are not mobile, like they stay stagnant in one place. that defines how and which type of the tissues will be present in either of them. Because animals have to move, so they'll have those tissues that will help them to move from one place to another. Whereas the plants, they'll have the tissues that are mostly dead, so as to support, provides like mechanical strength, structural support, all of that will be done. Always remember that all the cells in the case of animals and all the tissues, they are living. Living means protoplasm is present in them. Whereas when we talk about the plant tissues, so they'll have some that are dead, some that are living. Now, in them, if the plant tissue is dead, that doesn't mean that it's of no use. Rather, it means that it will perform, or it will get modified to perform multiple different functions. This much is clear, students? Yes, why is no one responding? Where are all of you? And please switch on your videos and everyone sit in front of your camera.
Yes, ma'am. Clear.
Tejas, I can't see you. Sarah, I can't see you. Your screen is blank. Switch on your cameras and be in front of it. Still can't see you, Sarah.
Ma'am, I think I'm having internet issues.
No, in one-to-one class, you open your video, but whenever you're in the group class here, you don't switch on your videos. You never do. I've never seen you here. I don't think it's internet issues. They just come in front of the camera. Tejas, am I audible to you? So we were talking about the plant tissues. Now plant tissues, they are immobile. They cannot move. They are fixed at one place. Particularly, most of the tissues that are there in the plants that provide support to them, structure and support, they are dead tissues. But dead tissues in the plants, they are actually useful. Now, when we talk about the growth of the plant and compare it with the growth of the animals, so what happens? That animals' growth is fixed. Like, okay, they'll grow up till a certain while and then they'll stop growing. But when we talk about the growth of the plants, it's not fixed, it is indeterminate, meaning the plants can grow for the rest of their life. All throughout their life, the plants can grow. That is something unique about them. Now, when we talk about the plant tissues, they are of two types, meristematic and permanent tissues. When we talk about the meristematic tissues, so these are the ones that have a big division property, like they can divide a lot, mostly in when the plant is young. So it is full of meristematic tissues. The other kind of tissues that are found in the plants are called as the permanent tissues. And these are the ones that have lost their ability to divide. Now, furthermore, the meristematic tissues, they are of three types: apical meristem, intercalary meristem, and lateral meristem. Now, apical is in terms of its position. So, apical meristem, it will be present at the tip of the stem and the root. Mostly its function will be to increase the length of stem and to increase the length of root. When we talk about intercalary, so it is present in between the two nodes. Students, do you know what a node is? Tell me what a node is. N-O-D-E, node. What is the meaning of it? No one knows? See, node is that part in the plant from where the leaves or these branches arise. Okay, so this is node. So in between the two nodes, there is like a place called as internode. So at that area, intercalary meristem is present. Lastly, there's the lateral meristem. Lateral in terms of biological position means sideways. So they're present on the sideways structure of the plant, and particularly they are important for the growth in terms of thickness. They grow the plant in terms of thickness, whereas when we talk about the apical meristem and the intercalary meristem, so they grow the plant in terms of its length. Now, talking about the characteristics of the meristematic tissues, so they are very active, meaning they are constantly dividing. It's like they never stop dividing. When we talk about the characteristics of meristematic tissue, they also have this dense cytoplasm present in them. They have thin cellulosic wall. The reason why it is thin, so that it can expand once it grows. They have a prominent nucleus. Prominent nucleus means a nucleus that is big enough to be seen easily. Also, since they are constantly dividing, they do not need to store anything as such. So they do not have the packets. Now, when we talk about the permanent tissues, students are able to see the screen. Students, are you able to see the screen? Yes or no?
No, ma'am.
Students, can you see the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, like I was saying, that the meristematic tissues, they do not need to store anything for the future. So they're like constantly dividing. So because of that very reason, they do not need or do not require any kind of vacuoles at all. Now comes the permanent tissues. Now the tissues that have lost their ability to divide. Now they cannot divide anymore. So they become permanent tissues. Meaning now they have a very specific or very modified role to play. And other than that, they do not divide as such. So whenever a tissue takes up a permanent shape, size, and function, this whole entire process of becoming a permanent tissue is called as differentiation. Now, this process of differentiation, it leads to the formation of different types of permanent tissues. And talking about the types of permanent tissues, so it is of two types, simple permanent tissues and complex permanent tissues. So when we talk about the simple permanent, so it is the type of permanent tissue that is made up of one type of cell. That's it. They just have a similar kind of cells present all throughout. Whereas when we talk about the complex permanent tissues, these are the ones that have more than one type of cells present. Now, when we talk about the simple permanent tissues, so these are the ones that are present right beneath the epidermis. The example is parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma. So when we talk about parenchyma, so these are thin cell wall tissues. They are the living cells. They are made up of cellulose. And the cells that are present inside, they have a lot of spaces present in between them. So we can say that they have a lot of intercellular spaces. The most important function of this parenchymatous tissue is to do the function of storage. So it stores. Then sometimes the parenchyma tissue, it can get modified into variety of different forms. And depending upon that, it has got its name. So whenever the parenchyma, it contains the green pigment, chlorophyll, then the parenchyma is called as chlorenchyma. Mostly in the aquatic plants, sometimes the parenchyma can have air spaces present in it so that it can help the plant to float. So those kind of parenchyma will be called as aerenchyma. Now the next type of the simple permanent tissue is the collenchyma. Now collenchyma, these are also living. Now they have like at certain areas of the cells, they have thickenings of pectin present. And they have very little intercellular spaces. So in them, the cells are closely associated as compared to the permanent ones. And they have, you can say, a very little intercellular space present. Lastly, the third and the last type of the this simple permanent tissue is the sclerenchyma. Now, sclerenchyma, it makes the plant rigid. Why? Because here, these are the dead tissues. Now, these are the ones in which the cells are dead. The cells are narrow and there is no intercellular space at all. The most important function that the sclerenchyma performs is to give the cell sort of like a structural support. That is the main and the most important function performed by the sclerenchyma. Now, in terms of where it is present, now when we talk about the this thing, the complex permanent tissues. Okay, so complex permanent tissues, they are of two types, xylem and phloem. Now, the criteria for becoming a complex permanent tissue is that it has to have different kinds of cells present in it. So, xylem and phloem are the best example for it. And how and what do they do? So the xylem and phloem, these are the vascular tissues. These are the conducting tissues. Xylem is responsible for the transportation of water and minerals, whereas phloem is responsible for the conduction of food throughout the plant. So they are like mostly they are responsible for transportation, and that is why they are very important to the plant, and we call them as the complex permanent tissues. Now, when we talk about the xylem, it has been made up of the four components: tracheids, vessel, xylem parenchyma, and xylem fibers. Xylem fibers, these are dead and they are supportive in function. Xylem parenchyma stores the food, whereas tracheids and vessels, they provide like a channel so that the water could be traveled or transported. Now, they allow the transport of water in the vertical direction from the roots to the different parts of the plants, particularly the leaf. Then there is the phloem parenchyma, phloem. This is another kind of complex permanent tissue, and it is also made up of these components: sieve cells, sieve tubes, companion cells, phloem parenchyma, and phloem fibers. So phloem fibers, again, they will be dead but supportive in function. Phloem parenchyma will be storing stuff, storing food. Companion cells, they support the sieve tube cells because sieve tubes, they do not have their own nucleus. So this is how variety of the plant tissues are present. Now tell me, students, any doubts?
Yes,
No,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Ma'am,
Hmm.
ma'am, in the notes we have written only four, ma'am.
Yeah, I know. See, sieve cells, they come together, they form the sieve tubes. Okay. So it's not very different from each other.
Okay.
Like the main are four only, like sieve tubes, companion cells, phloem parenchyma, and phloem fibers. Clear?
Okay, ma'am. Yeah, ma'am. Thank
Hmm. Now see, students, this is the plant tissues part which is completed. Now, for the next class, I want you all to prepare this part very nicely because I will be asking questions. So I have taught this the second time also now, and now you people need to prepare it so that you can answer the questions that I ask in the class. Clear?
Okay, ma'am.
Hmm. Now, okay. Any doubts, students? Tell me anything you want to ask. All right. Okay. All of you except Shri, you stay in the class. Rest of you, you can leave the meeting and learn this chapter. I'll ask questions in the next class.